I pressed record on my phone the moment I heard her heels clicking down the hallway. That sound used to make my stomach drop. Sharp, deliberate, like a countdown to my next public humiliation. But that morning was different. That morning I was ready. 6 months. That's how long Patricia made my life hell. 6 months of being called incompetent in front of clients, having my ideas stolen and presented as hers, being excluded from meetings I was supposed to lead, and being told I was too emotional every time I tried to defend myself. 6 months of going home and crying in my car before I could face my husband. 6 months of doubting everything I'd worked a decade to build. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning. To the day I realized my boss wasn't just difficult. She was dangerous. It started 3 weeks after Patricia transferred to our department. I was a senior marketing analyst at a mid-sized tech firm, 7 years in, respected by my team, known for delivering results. Patricia came from the New York office with a reputation for turning departments around. What they didn't mention was how she left a trail of broken employees behind her. Our first one-on-one meeting should have been a warning. She sat across from me in the glass-walled conference room, flipping through my portfolio like she was inspecting something rotten. Every few seconds, she'd make a small sound, a disapproving hum that made my skin crawl. Finally, she looked up. "This is what you consider high-level work." Her voice was sugar-coated poison. "I expected more from someone with your tenure." I felt my face flush. Those campaigns increased our Q2 conversions by 37%. "Numbers can be manipulated," she said, closing the folder with a sharp snap. "I'm more interested in innovation. Real innovation. Not just this." She waved her hand dismissively over my work, like she was shooing a fly. That night, I told myself she was just establishing dominance. New boss energy. It would pass. I was wrong. The attack started small. She'd forget to include me in email chains about projects I was leading. She'd schedule team meetings during my doctor's appointments, then express loud concern about my commitment issues when I couldn't attend. She began reassigning my best projects to newer team members, explaining in syrupy tones that she wanted to give others opportunities to shine. But the real torture happened in public. Patricia had a gift for humiliation, disguised as feedback. During presentations, she'd interrupt me mid-sentence to clarify what I meant, completely distorting my points until I sounded incompetent. In team meetings, she'd ask me to explain basic concepts, then look disappointed when I did. "I just worry about your grasp of fundamental principles," she'd say, shaking her head while my colleagues avoided eye contact. The worst incident happened during a client pitch in month 3. I'd spent weeks preparing a comprehensive rebranding strategy for our biggest account. I knew that presentation inside and out. I'd rehearsed it so many times I could recite it in my sleep. But 5 minutes before we were supposed to present, Patricia pulled me aside. "I think I should take the lead on this one," she said, not asking, telling. "But this is my project. I've been working directly with the client for months." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Exactly. And I'd hate for your nerves to undermine all that hard work. You know how you get in high-pressure situations." She said it loud enough for the client's team to hear, through the open conference room door. I sat through that meeting in stunned silence, while she presented my work, my ideas, my strategy. She even used my exact phrases. When the client praised the innovative approach, Patricia beamed and said, "My team and I work very hard to deliver exceptional results." My team. Like I was just another cog in her machine. After the meeting, I went to HR. Rebecca, the HR director, was sympathetic but ultimately useless. "Have you tried talking to Patricia directly about how her management style affects you? She calls me oversensitive when I bring up concerns." Rebecca nodded, taking careful notes. "I understand this is frustrating, but without concrete evidence of policy violations, it's difficult to act on interpersonal conflicts. Have you considered that perhaps there's a communication mismatch? Different management styles can feel abrasive when we're not used to them." There it was. The corporate equivalent of "maybe you're overreacting." I left her office feeling smaller than when I'd entered. That night, My husband Marcus found me staring at my laptop, eyes swollen from crying. He sat down beside me, waiting. Marcus never pushed. He just waited until I was ready. She's destroying me, I finally said. And no one believes it's happening. Then, make them believe it, he said quietly. Document everything. Every email. Every conversation. Everything. I looked at him. You mean? I mean protect yourself. If she's doing this to you, she's probably done it before. People like that don't just suddenly become bullies. They perfect it over time. That was the night everything changed. That was the night I stopped being a victim and started being a strategist. I started recording every interaction with Patricia. My state had one-party consent laws, which meant I could legally record conversations I was part of. I kept my phone in my jacket pocket, recording running during every meeting, every hallway conversation, every impromptu feedback session in her office. I created a detailed log with timestamps, descriptions, and witnesses. I saved every email, every Slack message, every text. I documented the projects she'd stolen, complete with drafts showing my original work and dates, proving I'd created them weeks before her brilliant ideas. But I needed more than just evidence. I needed to understand her pattern. So I started investigating. Patricia's LinkedIn profile was pristine, glowing recommendations, impressive achievements. But social media can be edited. Employment history can be curated. I needed to talk to people who'd actually worked with her. I found them through mutual connections, former colleagues from her previous 3 positions. I reached out carefully, professionally, saying I was seeking insight into collaborative approaches with Patricia. Most people were diplomatically vague. But then I connected with a woman named Jennifer who'd worked under Patricia at her last company. We met for coffee on a Saturday morning. Jennifer was around my age, sharp-eyed and cautious. She stirred her latte for a long moment before speaking. How bad is it? She asked. Bad enough that I'm here. She nodded slowly. She drove me to a breakdown. Actual, clinical breakdown. I was hospitalized for severe anxiety and depression after 8 months under her management. When I tried to report her, HR said I was struggling with performance issues and maybe the role wasn't the right fit. My hands tightened around my cup. Did you have documentation? Not enough. Not the right kind. She was too smart for that. Everything she did was technically defensible. The cruelty was in the subtext, the tone, the context. By the time I realized I needed proof, I was too mentally destroyed to function. Jennifer leaned forward. But here's what I learned after I left. I wasn't the first. She's done this at every company she's worked for. She finds one person, usually a woman who's competent enough to be a threat, and systematically destroys their credibility. Then she takes credit for restructuring the department after they leave or get pushed out. Why hasn't anyone stopped her? Because she delivers results. She's brilliant at managing up. Senior leadership loves her. And the people she destroys either leave quietly or get dismissed as problem employees. Jennifer's expression hardened. But if you have evidence, real evidence, you might be able to do what I couldn't. I left that coffee shop with a fire in my chest. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for Jennifer, for everyone Patricia had broken before me, and for everyone she'd break after me if someone didn't stop her. The recordings piled up. Patricia telling me my work was barely adequate after I delivered a campaign that exceeded all KPIs. Patricia laughing when I mentioned I'd had to leave early for a medical appointment, saying, "Must be nice to have such flexible priorities." Patricia in a team meeting saying, "Let's hear from someone who actually understands this space." Then calling on the intern instead of me. But the recording that changed everything happened in month 6. I'd been assigned to present our quarterly performance metrics to the executive team. It was my responsibility, outlined clearly in my job description. I'd prepared for a week. The night before the presentation, Patricia called me into her office. "I've decided to present the quarterly metrics myself," she said, not looking up from her computer. "That's my presentation. It's literally in my job description." She finally looked at me and her expression was ice. Your job description is whatever I say it is. And frankly, after your performance over the last few months, I don't trust you to represent this department effectively. My performance has been excellent. Every metric proves it. Metrics aren't everything. There's also attitude, cultural fit, leadership potential, and you're lacking in all three. She leaned back in her chair. Honestly, I'm not sure you're suited for this role anymore. Maybe we should start discussing alternative positions that better match your capabilities. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. Are you threatening my job? I'm managing my team effectively. If you perceive that as a threat, perhaps that says more about your insecurity than my management style. She smiled. You're dismissed. I walked out of her office, went straight to the bathroom, and locked myself in a stall. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold my phone. But when I played back the recording, every word was crystal clear. The contempt, the threat, the gaslighting, all of it. That night, I compiled everything. 6 months of recordings, organized by category: public humiliation, credit theft, exclusion, threats, gaslighting. I included my detailed log with dates, times, witnesses. I added the emails and messages. I attached my performance reviews, all of which were excellent until Patricia arrived. I included testimonials from clients praising my work. And then I wrote my statement. 3 pages, single-spaced, clinical, and precise. No emotion, just facts. I sent it all to HR at 11:47 p.m. on a Sunday night. Every file, every recording, every piece of evidence. I copied the head of HR, the VP of Operations, and the CEO. I titled the email, Formal Complaint, Hostile Work Environment and Management Misconduct. Then I went to bed and slept better than I had in months. Monday morning, I arrived at the office at 8 a.m. sharp. Patricia's office light was already on. At 9:15, she was called into a meeting with HR. At 10:30, the VP of Operations went into the same conference room. At 11:45, Patricia emerged, her face pale, her signature heels clicking faster than usual as she headed straight to her office. My phone rang at 2 p.m. Rebecca from HR, asking if I could come to conference room B. When I arrived, she was there with the VP of Operations and the company's attorney. They listened to every recording, read every document. This is extremely serious, the attorney said. We're launching a full investigation. In the meantime, Patricia has been placed on administrative leave. You'll report directly to the VP until this is resolved. We owe you an apology, Rebecca said, and she looked genuinely ashamed. You came to us months ago, and we didn't take it seriously enough. You didn't take it seriously at all, I said quietly. You told me it was a communication mismatch. She didn't have a response for that. The investigation took 3 weeks. They interviewed everyone on the team. They reviewed Patricia's entire employment history with the company. They contacted her previous employers. And they found exactly what Jennifer had warned me about. A pattern. For other employees across 3 companies. All women. All high performers. All systematically destroyed. Patricia was terminated on a Thursday afternoon. Security escorted her out of the building with a box of her personal belongings. I wasn't there to see it. I was in a meeting with the executive team, being offered her position. I said no. I didn't want her job. I wanted to do my job without being tortured for it. They respected that. Instead, they promoted me to Senior Director of Marketing Strategy, a newly created position with a 20% raise and my choice of projects. But the real victory came 2 months later. I was contacted by a woman named Sarah who'd seen my LinkedIn update about my promotion. She'd worked with Patricia at her first company, before I'd even started my career. I saw she's not with your company anymore, Sarah wrote. I hope that means someone finally stopped her. She destroyed my career 15 years ago. I was so young, I didn't know how to fight back. Hearing that she finally faced consequences, it helps. It really helps. I shared Sarah's message with Jennifer. Then I shared it with the 3 other women I discovered during the investigation. We created a private group chat. Not for revenge or to celebrate Patricia's downfall, but to support each other. To remind ourselves that what happened to us wasn't our fault. That speaking up wasn't overreacting. That documentation isn't paranoia, it's protection. Last I heard, Patricia was unemployed for 8 months before finding a position at a much smaller firm, at a much lower level. Her LinkedIn is quieter now. Fewer posts about leadership excellence and team empowerment. I still work at the same company. My team respects me. My boss values my input. I haven't had a panic attack before a meeting in over a year. I don't cry in my car anymore. But I still keep records of everything. Not because I expect trouble, but because I learned the most important lesson of my career. Your voice matters, but evidence makes them listen. The other day, a new analyst on my team asked to speak with me privately. She seemed nervous, choosing her words carefully. "I'm probably overreacting," she started. "Tell me anyway," I said. And I listened, really listened, because I remember what it feels like to not be heard. I remember what it costs. What I didn't tell you yet is what happened in those 3 weeks between sending the email and Patricia's termination, because those weeks were almost worse than the 6 months of torture. The waiting, the uncertainty, the fear that maybe, just maybe, they'd find a way to make this my fault. The morning after I sent the evidence to HR, I woke up at 4 a.m. in a cold sweat. What had I done? I'd just declared war on someone who had the ear of every executive in the company. Someone who was brilliant at manipulating perception. What if they believed her version instead of mine? Marcus found me in the kitchen, staring at my phone like it was a bomb about to detonate. "Second thoughts?" he asked gently. "Terrified thoughts," I corrected. What if this backfires? What if she convinces them I doctored the recordings or took them out of context? He poured 2 cups of coffee and sat across from me. "Then you walk away knowing you tried. But babe, you have 6 months of evidence. Dozens of recordings, witnesses, performance reviews that prove you were excellent before she arrived. They'd have to be willfully blind not to see the truth. Companies protect their own," I whispered, "and she's been their golden girl." "So were you," he reminded me. 7 years of excellence. That has to count for something. I wanted to believe him, but I'd seen too many women get pushed out, blamed, erased. I'd watched it happen to Jennifer. I knew how easily the narrative could shift. That first week was psychological warfare. Patricia acted like nothing had happened. She was sweet as honey in team meetings, complimenting my work, asking how my weekend was. It was disturbing. Like she didn't know I'd just submitted a dossier that could end her career. Or worse, like she knew and was so confident it wouldn't matter that she could afford to play nice. But I noticed small things. The way her hand trembled slightly when she held her coffee mug. The way she checked her phone obsessively. The way she stayed late every night. Her office light visible from the parking lot when I left at 6 p.m. She was scared. She just hid it better than I did. On day 4, something happened that nearly broke my resolve. I was in the break room when 2 colleagues from another department walked in, not realizing I was there. I heard my name and froze. "I heard she's trying to get Patricia fired," one of them said. "Seriously? Patricia's been nothing but supportive since she got here. This reeks of someone who can't handle constructive criticism, right? Some people just can't adapt to strong leadership. They take everything personally." I stood there, hidden by the open refrigerator door, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. This was what Patricia had cultivated. This perfect image of the supportive, brilliant leader. And here I was, the oversensitive employee who couldn't take feedback. I wanted to walk out there and tell them everything. Show them the recordings. Make them understand. But I didn't. I waited until they left. Then I went to the bathroom and cried for 10 minutes. That night, I almost withdrew the complaint. I drafted the email 3 times. Upon reflection, I believe I may have misinterpreted, but I couldn't finish it because it would be a lie, and I'd already spent 6 months living in Patricia's lies. The investigation intensified in week 2. I was called in for multiple interviews. They asked me to walk through every incident, explain every recording, justify why I documented everything instead of coming to HR sooner. I did come to HR, I reminded Rebecca during one particularly grueling session. You told me it was a communication issue. She at least had the decency to look ashamed. They interviewed my teammates. I found out later that Patricia had tried to prep them, subtly suggesting I'd been struggling lately, hinting at personal issues, planting seeds of doubt. But the recordings didn't lie, and my colleagues, when pressed, admitted they'd witnessed the pattern. She was different when you weren't around. My teammate James told me after his interview. With us, she was collaborative, supportive. But with you, yeah, there was something off. I should have said something earlier. I'm sorry. I wasn't angry at James. I understood. Patricia was a master at isolation. She made sure her abuse happened in controlled contexts where she could maintain plausible deniability. A comment here, a cutting remark there, always with a smile, always defensible as just feedback. But what really turned the investigation was when they contacted her previous employers. That's when the pattern became undeniable. The attorney pulled me aside during week 3. We found 4 other formal complaints filed against her at previous companies. All were settled quietly. All involved similar allegations. This isn't a personality conflict. This is a documented pattern of hostile conduct. Why wasn't this caught in her background check? I asked. He looked uncomfortable. The complaints were sealed as part of settlement agreements. The references we called were from executives she'd worked with, not the employees she'd managed. It's a gap in our vetting process we're addressing. A gap that had cost me 6 months of my mental health, that had destroyed Jennifer's career, that had left a trail of broken women across 4 companies. The day Patricia was terminated, I wasn't supposed to know about it in advance, but word travels fast in office buildings. I saw security heading to her floor. I saw the attorney and the VP of operations walking together with grim expressions. I saw Patricia's assistant being pulled into a separate meeting. 30 minutes later, Patricia walked past my desk with a cardboard box. She didn't look at me, didn't say a word, just walked straight to the elevator with a security guard trailing behind her. Her face was blank, but I could see the rage in the set of her jaw, the stiffness of her shoulders. I waited until the elevator doors closed. Then I went to the bathroom and threw up. Not from fear this time. From relief so intense, it was physically overwhelming. But it wasn't over. Not really. 2 days after Patricia's termination, I started getting anonymous emails. Vicious, hateful messages calling me a backstabber, a snake, a vindictive bitch who couldn't handle a strong woman in leadership. They came from burner email addresses, impossible to trace, but I knew they were from Patricia or people loyal to her. You destroyed a brilliant woman's career because of your own inadequacy. One read, I hope you can live with yourself. Another said, karma's coming for you. What goes around comes around. I forwarded them all to HR and the attorney. They added them to Patricia's file as evidence of retaliation, but that didn't make reading them any less painful. Didn't make me doubt myself any less in the quiet moments. Marcus found me one night, staring at my laptop, reading the emails over and over. Why do you keep torturing yourself? He asked. Because part of me wonders if they're right. I admitted. What if I did overreact? What if I could have handled it differently? He sat down next to me, gently closing the laptop. Babe, you had 6 months of documented abuse. Witnesses. A pattern of behavior that destroyed other people's careers. You didn't overreact. You survived. And then you fought back. That's not vindictive. That's self-preservation. She lost her job because of me. She lost her job because of her own actions. You just made sure those actions had consequences for once. I wanted to believe that. Most days I did. But the doubt lingered like a shadow. The promotion offer came 3 weeks later. And with it, something unexpected. An apology from the CEO himself. He called me into his office, a space I'd only been in twice before for company-wide celebrations. I owe you an apology, he said without preamble. Our system failed you. We brought someone into this company without proper vetting, and when you raised concerns, we didn't listen. That's on us, on me, and I'm sorry. It was the first time anyone in leadership had actually acknowledged the institutional failure, not just Patricia's individual misconduct. We're implementing new policies, he continued. Mandatory management training on harassment and hostile work environments, a revised complaint process with third-party oversight. And we're conducting a full audit of our management team to ensure this isn't happening elsewhere. That should have already existed, I said quietly. You're right. It should have. We got complacent. We'll do better. I accepted the apology, because what else could I do? But I made sure he understood. The new policies only matter if you actually enforce them. If the next person who comes forward with evidence gets dismissed as oversensitive, none of this means anything. Agreed, he said, which is why we'd like you to be part of the committee designing the new protocols. You've lived through what doesn't work. Help us build what does. I said yes, not because I'd forgiven the system, but because I wanted to burn it down and rebuild it better. The months that followed were strange. I was healing, but healing isn't linear. Some days I felt powerful, vindicated, proud of what I'd done. Other days I felt guilty, second-guessing, wondering if I destroyed someone's life over personality conflicts, I could have managed better. Therapy helped. My therapist, Dr. Ramos, was blunt in a way I needed. You're experiencing a trauma response, she explained. Abuse rewires your brain to normalize the abuser's behavior and blame yourself for triggering it. Even after you escape, that wiring doesn't just disappear. Your brain keeps trying to make you the villain because that's the story you were told for 6 months. So how do I stop? You challenge it with evidence. Every time you doubt yourself, look at the facts. Look at the recordings. Look at what actually happened, not the story Patricia told you about what happened. So that's what I did. When the doubt crept in at 2 a.m., when the anonymous emails made me question everything, I'd pull up the files. Listen to Patricia's voice dripping with contempt. Read the messages where she threatened my job. Review the testimonies from other women she destroyed. The facts didn't lie. My feelings sometimes did. 6 months after Patricia's termination, I was presenting at an industry conference, a workshop on workplace culture and accountability. I'd been nervous about it, worried about being too public, too vulnerable. But when I stepped onto that stage and saw the room full of professional women, something shifted. I told my story, not with all the details, but enough. The pattern of abuse, the documentation, the fight with HR, the eventual victory. And when I finished, the questions started. How did you stay strong enough to keep recording? What do you say to people who claim you're just being vindictive? How do you deal with the guilt? That last question came from a woman in the back, maybe late 20s, with eyes that looked too tired for her age. You deal with it by remembering you're not responsible for someone else's choice to abuse their power, I said. You're only responsible for protecting yourself and making sure they can't do it to someone else. If that makes you feel guilty, it's because you have empathy, which means you're nothing like them. She nodded, and I saw tears in her eyes. After the session, she approached me. I'm going through something similar right now, she said quietly. With my manager. I've been telling myself I'm overreacting. Are you documenting it? No, I didn't think. I mean, it's not that bad. I handed her my card. It's that bad if it's affecting your mental health. It's that bad if you're afraid to go to work. Start documenting. Today. You might never need it. But if you do, you'll be glad you have it. She took the card with shaking hands. 3 months later, she emailed me. She'd submitted her evidence to HR. Her manager was under investigation. The ripple effect of standing up doesn't end with your own story. It gives permission to others to tell theirs. Patricia tried to sue the company for wrongful termination. The lawsuit was dismissed within 6 weeks. Her attorney apparently advised her that going to trial would mean all the evidence would become public record. The recordings, the testimony, the pattern across 4 companies. She withdrew the suit quietly. Last I heard, she was working as a consultant, Solo practice. No employees to manage. Maybe that's for the best. I don't celebrate her downfall. I don't feel victorious when I think about her unemployment. Mostly I feel sad. Sad that someone so talented at strategy and analysis chose to use those skills to break people instead of build them. Sad that she'll probably never understand the damage she caused. Sad that there are countless others like her, still out there, still destroying careers, still getting away with it. But I also feel something else. Hope. Because systems can change. Because evidence matters. Because speaking up, even when it's terrifying, even when you're not sure anyone will believe you, can actually work. My team now has 11 people. I lead differently than Patricia did. I listen more than I talk. I give credit loudly and publicly. When someone makes a mistake, we problem solve together instead of assigning blame. And when someone on my team seems off, seems stressed, seems like they're struggling, I ask. And I actually listen to the answer. Last week, one of my analysts came to me with a complaint about a manager in a different department. He was doing to her what Patricia had done to me. The same patterns, the same tactics. She'd been documenting everything. I walked her to HR personally, sat with her during the initial interview, made sure they understood this wasn't a personality conflict. This was a pattern. And this time HR listened. Because the new protocols were in place. Because I was on the oversight committee. Because we'd built something better from the ashes of what had failed me. The investigation is ongoing. But I have hope that this woman won't have to endure 6 months of hell like I did. That the system will catch it faster. Respond stronger. Protect better. Patricia taught me something valuable. Even if she didn't mean to. She taught me that bullies count on silence. They count on self-doubt. They count on systems that protect comfort over justice. But they don't count on evidence. They don't count on persistence. And they definitely don't count on someone who refuses to disappear quietly. 6 months of hell. 3 weeks of investigation. 1 email that changed everything. Was it worth it? Every single recording. Every sleepless night. Every moment of doubt. Because now, when I hear heels clicking down the hallway, I don't feel my stomach drop. I just hear someone walking. And that freedom, that's the real revenge.